3 hours earlier, Ava Williams sat frozen at the round table near the center of the ballroom, her fingers curled tightly around the stem of an untouched champagne flute. The crystal chandeliers above Summit Lake Country Club scattered light across silk dresses and polished shoes, but none of it reached her. At the front of the room, her father stood tall and confident, a man who had commanded operating rooms for decades. Dr. Williams raised his glass and smiled at the crowd of nearly 150 guests. "To my successful daughter," he said, his voice warm and practiced, "who is marrying a surgeon and continuing the legacy this family has worked so hard to build." Applause followed. Ava felt her chest tighten. "And unlike her sister," he continued, eyes drifting toward Ava without softening, "Natalie understood what excellence requires. Some people choose to save lives. Others are content teaching children their ABCs." Laughter rippled through the room. Ava's cheeks burned, but she did not look away. She had learned long ago that reacting only fed the cruelty. Beside her, Samuel Brooks remained still, his presence calm and unassuming. Dr. Williams barely acknowledged him, offering only a brief nod when they had arrived. What no one in that room knew, what her father had never bothered to learn, was that the quiet man next to her held a truth powerful enough to silence every laugh. A single check. A single revelation. And a reckoning that would shatter everything her family believed about success. Before I continue, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from today. Your one click really helps support the channel. That morning, Ava had nearly decided not to go at all. She woke in her small one-bedroom apartment just after sunrise, staring at a faint water stain on the ceiling while a familiar knot twisted in her stomach. Her phone rang at 7 sharp. "You awake?" Samuel's voice was steady, gentle. "Unfortunately," she replied. He smiled through the line. "You don't sound convinced this party is a good idea." "It's not," Ava said honestly, "but skipping it would just prove his point." "Then let's survive it together," Samuel said. "I'll pick you up early. Coffee first. Armor up." They had met 18 months earlier at a fundraiser for public schools. Samuel had stayed late to stack chairs while everyone else rushed off to cocktail hour. He never asked her salary. He never talked about his own. That mattered to Ava more than he knew. "I'll be ready," she said. "And Ava," he added, pausing, "whatever happens today, you don't owe anyone silence." She swallowed. "Thank you." When she hung up, Ava sat at the edge of the bed, breathing slowly. She chose a simple navy dress borrowed from a colleague, brushed her hair, and reminded herself why she loved her life. Teaching was not a consolation prize. It was a choice. Samuel arrived exactly at noon. He greeted Ava with an easy smile and handed her a cup of coffee before she could ask. As they drove toward the country club, his phone rang through the car speakers. He glanced at the screen and declined the call. "Work?" Ava asked. "Always," he said lightly. "It can wait." The suburbs blurred past as Ava prepared him for what lay ahead. "My father is Dr. Williams," she began. "Retired cardiologist. In our family, medicine isn't just a career. It's identity." Samuel nodded, listening. "When Natalie got into nursing school, he threw a party. When I got accepted into the education program, he told me I was wasting my potential." Ava laughed quietly. "He hasn't used my name in years. Just your sister." Samuel reached over and squeezed her hand. "He tore up my acceptance letter when I was 18, she continued. Said teaching wasn't real pressure." They pulled into Summit Lake Country Club, white columns rising like a monument to old money. Valets waited. Ava exhaled. "Still want to do this?" Samuel asked. She nodded. "Yes. But I'm done pretending it doesn't hurt." Samuel met her eyes. "Then let today be honest." Inside, luxury announced itself loudly. Marble floors gleamed. Servers circulated with champagne. At the center of the room stood Natalie Williams in an ivory gown, her diamond ring catching every light. Dr. Williams rested a proud hand on her shoulder. Natalie spotted Ava and smiled, not warmly, but critically. "You came," she said. Her gaze slid to Samuel. "And you brought him." Samuel extended his hand. "Samuel Brooks. Nice to meet you." Natalie shook it briefly before turning away. Their father offered Ava a single word. "Ava." His eyes flicked to Samuel and moved on. "Natalie, come. The Hendersons want to meet Daniel." Daniel Foster appeared moments later, confident and polished. "A pleasure," he said, Already distracted. Busy night. Ava watched as her father introduced Daniel to former colleagues, praising his surgical volume at Apex Regional Hospital. Top program, Dr. Williams said proudly. Samuel listened quietly. When Ava's mother approached, Judith Williams squeezed her hand. Your dress is lovely, she whispered. I'm glad you came. Ava nodded. It was the closest Judith ever came to resistance. Samuel handed Ava a glass of champagne. You holding up? I am, she said. For now. Natalie cornered Ava near the terrace doors while Samuel stepped away to take a call. So, Natalie said sweetly, still teaching first grade? Yes. That's admirable, Natalie replied, not meaning it. Not everyone can handle real pressure. Ava said nothing. And Samuel, Natalie continued. What does he do again? Something in healthcare. Administration, Ava answered. Natalie laughed softly. That explains it. Daniel joined them, swirling his drink. You know Apex got bought out a few years ago, he said. Some big group. Summit Care Health. New owner runs everything remotely. Ava's chest tightened. Never met him, Daniel added. Young guy, apparently. Samuel returned just then, slipping his phone into his pocket. Everything okay? He asked. Yes, Ava said quietly, her eyes locked on his. And in that moment, before the toast, before the humiliation, Ava understood that the story her family believed about power and worth was already wrong. They just didn't know it yet. The engagement party moved forward with the smooth efficiency of a well-funded event. Conversations overlapped, laughter rose and fell, and servers refilled glasses before anyone asked. Ava stayed close to Samuel, grateful for his steady presence as her father continued to circulate the room, proudly repeating the same polished lines about Natalie and Daniel. My future son-in-law, Dr. Williams said to a pair of former colleagues, one of the most promising orthopedic surgeons in the state. Daniel smiled easily, soaking in the praise. Natalie leaned into him, her posture announcing victory. Ava watched from a distance, feeling like an observer in her own family. Samuel leaned closer. Do you want to step outside for a minute? Not yet, Ava replied. If I leave now, they'll think I couldn't handle it. She scanned the room and caught fragments of conversation, investment portfolios, hospital expansions, private schools. No one asked her about her students. No one ever did. Judith passed by again, hesitating before moving on. Ava recognized the look. Guilt without courage. When the host tapped the microphone to gather attention, a hush spread across the ballroom. Ava's stomach tightened. Oh no, she whispered. Samuel followed her gaze. What? My father, she said. He's about to speak. Samuel's expression didn't change, but his hand found hers. I'm here, he said simply. Dr. Williams took the microphone with practiced ease. The room responded instantly, quieting with respect. Tonight, he began, is about family, tradition, and honoring excellence. Ava closed her eyes briefly. My daughter Natalie understood what it means to carry the Williams name, he continued. She chose discipline, sacrifice, and a profession that saves lives. Applause followed. Natalie beamed. And now, Dr. Williams said, lifting his glass, she's marrying a man who embodies that same standard. He paused, letting the moment stretch. Then his eyes found Ava. Unlike her sister, he said lightly, who chose a simpler path. The room reacted instantly. Laughter, murmurs, sympathetic smiles. Teaching children their ABCs, Dr. Williams added. A noble effort, I suppose, but not everyone is built for greatness. Ava felt the words land, heavy and familiar. Years of being compared condensed into a single sentence. Samuel's grip tightened. So let us toast, Dr. Williams concluded, to the daughter who got it right. Glasses clinked. Ava didn't raise hers. She stared straight ahead, breathing through the sting, aware of every eye flicking toward her and then away. The laughter faded into uncomfortable chatter. Ava felt something shift inside her, not anger, not tears, but clarity. Samuel leaned close. Say the word, he murmured, and I'll follow your lead. She nodded once. That was all. When Ava stood, several guests assumed she was leaving. A few nodded politely, as if her retreat were expected. Natalie watched from across the room, a small, satisfied smile on her lips. But Ava didn't turn toward the exit.
She walked toward the stage. Dr. Williams froze when he saw her approach. "Ava," he said into the microphone, forcing a smile.
Is something wrong?
"Yes," she replied evenly.
There is.
The room went silent.
Phones appeared discreetly in hands.
"I'd like to say something," Ava continued. Her father hesitated.
Now isn't, now is, she said.
Samuel stepped forward beside her. Calm. Unrushed. Ava turned to the crowd.
My boyfriend wanted to contribute to the celebration.
Natalie laughed nervously.
How thoughtful.
Samuel reached into his jacket and removed a checkbook.
A murmur swept the room as Samuel uncapped his pen and began to write.
He didn't rush. He didn't look around.
When he finished, he tore the check free and handed it to Ava.
She glanced down once. Then she looked up.
Samuel is donating $250,000, Ava said clearly.
The words landed hard. That's not funny, Natalie said sharply.
Ava lifted the check, turning it toward the light. The logo was unmistakable.
Summit Care Health.
Daniel's glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the marble floor.
That's impossible, he said hoarsely. Samuel spoke for the first time.
It isn't.
Daniel stared at him. You're the owner, Samuel finished calmly. The room erupted. James Carter stepped forward from the crowd. I can confirm that, he said.
I'm the CFO of Summit Care Health.
Silence followed. Dr. Williams looked as though the ground had shifted beneath him. Ava met her father's eyes. I chose teaching, she said.
And I chose well. Dr. Williams tried to recover, reaching for Samuel's hand.
An impressive young man, he said too loudly.
We're very proud.
Ava shook her head. No, she said.
You're embarrassed.
She turned back to the room. This money won't fund a wedding, she continued. It's being donated to public schools.
In the Williams name.
A beat passed.
Then Judith began to clap.
Slowly, others joined. Natalie stood frozen. Daniel said nothing.
Ava handed the microphone back to her father.
I don't need your approval, she said quietly.
But I won't accept your disrespect anymore. She stepped away, Samuel beside her, leaving the stage, and the old version of herself behind.
The ballroom slowly came back to life, but nothing felt the same.
Conversations resumed in hushed tones, carefully measured now. People who had laughed minutes earlier suddenly avoided eye contact with Dr. Williams. Ava noticed it immediately, the subtle shift of power. Respect, she realized, was fragile when it was built on cruelty. Natalie finally moved, her heels clicking sharply as she crossed the room toward Ava.
Why would you do that? She demanded in a low voice.
You embarrassed us.
Ava met her gaze steadily. No.
I told the truth.
Daniel hovered behind Natalie, his confidence gone.
I didn't know, he muttered, not quite meeting Samuel's eyes.
Samuel nodded politely. Most people don't, he replied.
Judith approached then, her hands trembling.
Ava, she said softly. I'm so sorry.
Ava studied her mother's face, searching for something she had waited years to see.
Regret was there. Fear too. But also relief. It's done, Ava said gently.
What happens next is a choice. Judith nodded, tears filling her eyes.
I know.
Across the room, Dr. Williams stood alone, his glass untouched, watching guests drift away from him one by one.
They left shortly after. The cool night air felt like release as Ava and Samuel stepped outside. The noise of the party faded behind them, replaced by quiet and distance.
You okay?
Samuel asked once they reached the car. Ava exhaled slowly.
I didn't realize how heavy it was until I put it down.
He smiled.
You were incredible. They drove in silence for several minutes, the city lights drawing closer. Ava rested her head against the seat, replaying the evening in fragments. The laughter, the silence, the look on her father's face when his authority failed him.
I never wanted revenge, she said finally.
I just wanted to stop shrinking.
Samuel reached for her hand.
You didn't shrink tonight.
At her apartment, Ava paused before getting out. Thank you, she said, for trusting me to handle it. Samuel shrugged lightly.
It was always your story.
She smiled at that.
For the first time in a long while, the future felt like something she owned.
The call came a week later.
Ava was grading spelling tests when her phone buzzed.
She stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. Ava, her father said.
He used her name carefully, like it was unfamiliar. Yes. I've been thinking, Dr. Williams said.
Silence stretched.
About what you said.
She waited.
I didn't understand your choice, he admitted. I thought success only looked one way. That was never my burden, Ava replied calmly.
I know, he said. I'm trying to learn that now. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest he had ever come. We can talk, Ava said.
Eventually.
I'd like that, he replied quietly. When the call ended, Ava returned to her papers. One word was circled in red. Quietly, she smiled.
The donation changed things quickly.
New books arrived at Ava's school. Fresh supplies filled classrooms that had gone without for years.
Teachers stopped her in the hallway, gratitude written plainly on their faces. You did this, one whispered.
Ava shook her head.
We did. Samuel never attended the ceremonies or photo opportunities. He stayed exactly where he'd always been.
Beside her, not in front of her. Natalie called once.
The conversation was awkward, restrained, but honest.
I didn't realize how cruel I'd been, she said.
I'm trying to be better.
Ava believed her effort more than the words.
Judith visited on a Sunday afternoon and stayed for tea.
They talked about ordinary things. It felt new.
Change, Ava learned, didn't arrive all at once. It arrived quietly, through consistent choices. On Monday morning, Ava stood at the front of her classroom, dry erase marker in hand. 22 students watched her with unfiltered trust. Today, she said, smiling, we're learning the letter Q.
A hand shot up. Why is Q so weird? Ava laughed.
Because English likes to keep us humble. As the children leaned in, sounding out words, Ava felt grounded in a way no ballroom ever could.
This was her work. This was her life.
After school, Samuel waited for her outside, just as he always had.
Good day, he asked.
The best, she replied. And for the first time, Ava knew without doubt that choosing herself had changed everything. That evening, Ava sat alone at her small kitchen table, a stack of student drawings spread out in front of her. Crayons, suns, uneven letters, smiling stick figures. Proof of effort, not perfection. She held one picture longer than the others, a child's careful attempt at writing her name beneath a rainbow. The letters leaned, uncertain but determined.
Ava felt something settle inside her.
For years, she had been told that worth came from titles, income, and applause. But here, in quiet ink and crooked lines, was the kind of impact that never made headlines and yet changed lives every day. Her phone buzzed with a message from Samuel. Thai food?
She smiled and replied yes.
Simple routines, she realized, were not small lives.
They were stable ones.
Chosen ones. The following weekend, Judith invited Ava for lunch.
Just the two of them. No performances.
No apologies wrapped in excuses. They sat across from each other at a modest cafe, sunlight spilling through the windows. I should have protected you, Judith said plainly. Ava didn't interrupt. I thought keeping the peace was kindness, her mother continued. I was wrong.
Ava nodded.
What matters is what you do now.
Judith reached across the table and squeezed her hand.
I want to do better.
It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. And that was enough to begin.
Natalie's effort came in smaller ways. Texts without comparisons. Questions about Ava's students that didn't carry judgment. One afternoon, she even asked to visit the classroom. Ava watched her sister kneel beside a desk, listening to a child read slowly, carefully.
Natalie didn't correct. She didn't rush. She just listened.
Later, outside the school, Natalie exhaled. I never understood this before. You weren't trying to, Ava said gently.
Natalie nodded.
I am now.
It didn't erase the past. But it softened it. Samuel never changed.
That, more than anything, reassured Ava.
He still wore jeans to events where suits were expected. Still avoided talking about his work unless asked. Still showed up early to help and stayed late to clean up.
One evening, as they walked home from dinner, Ava asked, Do you ever regret not telling people who you are?
Samuel thought for a moment. No, he said.
The people who matter always find out eventually. Ava slipped her hand into his. She believed him. Months later, Ava stood on the school playground watching her students race toward the swings. Laughter filled the air, unfiltered and honest. She thought briefly of chandeliers, champagne, and a life she had once tried to fit into.
Then she let it go.
Her phone buzzed with a message from her father. Not criticism, not comparison, just a question about her day.
Ava answered when she was ready. She had learned that respect did not come from proving herself louder than others. It came from standing still in who she was.
And that lesson, she knew, was one she would carry forward, into every classroom, every relationship, every future choice.
The shift in Ava's life wasn't loud after that.
There were no victory speeches, no dramatic confrontations left to stage. Instead, there were quieter moments that carried more weight than applause ever could. One afternoon, as Ava packed up her classroom, the school principal stopped by her door. "I just wanted you to know," she said, leaning against the frame, "the reading scores in your class have improved more than any other first-grade group this semester." Ava smiled, surprised.
"They've worked hard."
"They have," the principal agreed. "But they also trust you." That word stayed with Ava long after the hallway emptied.
Trust.
It was something she had earned slowly, deliberately, without needing to perform. Later that evening, she told Samuel over dinner. "That's the kind of success that actually lasts," he said.
Ava nodded.
She finally understood that she no longer needed to explain herself to anyone, not her father, not her sister, not a room full of strangers. The life she built spoke clearly enough on its own.
Her father never fully transformed. Ava didn't expect him to. But he adjusted. Conversations became shorter, less judgmental.
He asked about her students by name once, awkwardly, as if learning a new language.
Ava noticed the effort and let it be what it was. Natalie continued trying. She showed up to school events when invited. She listened more than she spoke.
It didn't erase years of rivalry, but it replaced it with something quieter and more honest.
And Ava herself changed the most. She stopped bracing for disappointment. She stopped rehearsing defenses.
She learned that boundaries did not require anger, only clarity. One night, standing on her apartment balcony beside Samuel, she said, "I used to think I had to prove my worth."
Samuel looked at her.
"You never did." The city hummed below them, ordinary and alive. Ava felt rooted in it, part of something real. On the last day of the school year, Ava's students crowded around her desk, handing over folded papers and handmade cards. One note read, "Thank you for believing in me." Ava pressed it to her chest and blinked back tears. As the classroom emptied, she stood alone for a moment, breathing in the quiet. She thought of where she had started, measured, compared, dismissed, and where she now stood. Not elevated above anyone. Not proven right. Just whole. That evening, Samuel waited for her outside. Same smile, same calm presence.
"Ready?" he asked.
"Yes," Ava said. And as they walked away together, Ava knew this was the ending she wanted. Not a triumph over others, but a steady confidence in herself. A life chosen freely. A future defined not by legacy or titles, but by purpose, dignity, and peace.
Thank you for staying until the end.
Don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more stories like this, and share it with someone who might need to hear it today.